Blog Talk Radio.
Political chaos has taken over the Democratic Marxists after Tuesday's debates with 12 days until the election. I will be back in a minute to discuss.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, Richard G. Medlock. This is Thursday, October 27th, 2022. We are 12 days from Election Day. This is episode 72, and it's entitled Political Chaos. Like I said a minute ago, the Democratic Marxists are in political chaos right now after Tuesday night's debates. The Democrats got their lunch eaten by the Republican candidate across the board. Now, and some of you will probably disagree with that, and that's fine. That's why we have freedom in America. You can have your own opinion, but facts don't change. The truth doesn't change. Fetterman is out of this thing completely now. Yesterday morning, less than 24 hours after the debate, there's talk in Pennsylvania of pulling him and putting his wife in there to run for the Senate. Now, that got squashed real fast because Democrats would go, whoa, wait a minute. I can't vote for this. This is crazy. In Las Vegas, the betting rose 20%. The number went up 20% in favor of Oz. Now, Oz was calm, cool, collective. He didn't attack Fetterman. He let Fetterman destroy himself. And sadly, when that man had his stroke, he should have withdrawn. But I guess they didn't have anybody else to put up there. I mean, it was sad to watch this man. He struggled. His thought processes weren't there. That's not what we need in the United States Senate. Well, let's go to New York. The debate between Zeldin and Hochul, the current governor, who's been a disaster. She got hammered on key issues. She had no answer for things that Zeldin brought up, like pay for play. The big thing there, a gentleman donated $300,000 to her campaign, and he gets a no-bid contract of $630 million. That's corruption, folks. And she got called out on it. She had no answer. But here's her biggest downfall. We talked about this yesterday, Tom and I did. When she said, "Why are you guys so upset about the crime rates? What's the big deal?" That is the top issue in the state of New York, crime. That is the number one issue polling as a concern in the state of New York. And she blew it off like it was just a roach running across the floor. It's turning here, folks. The truth is coming out. The truth is coming out. In Michigan, the same thing happened up there. Ohio, in the Senate race, the incumbent Democrat, he just stammered. He stammered. Now, let me ask you this. Why was it that they could not answer these questions? It's been going on. They know it's been going on because the propaganda media will not ask these hard questions of these Democratic Marxists and their corruption. They softball them all day long. So they get into these debates and they don't know how to handle a tough question. Now, Fetterman, the question didn't come from Oz. The question came from the moderator. We understand that you are against fracking, and there's mountains of proof to show he is. And then I've always supported, and he just stood there before he could say anything. It was sad to watch. But the moderator asked the question. Oz never attacked him, never brought up his stroke. Anyway, you're seeing a massive turn since Tuesday night. And so the Democratic Marxists are going to create more political chaos in America. Let me give you an example. This morning at 8:30, less than 45 minutes ago, the government came out with third quarter GDP, gross domestic product. Well, the first two quarters were negative, right? They're negative. Now, you might have already seen the number, but this is what they come up with, folks. Oh, it's plus 2.6%. The economy grew 2.6% in third quarter. Now, before you jump up and shout hallelujah, let me give you some other numbers that you will not see from the mainstream media. They're just going to report GDP is up 2.6%, Biden's policies are working, and vote for Democrats. But let's look at the underlying numbers. Durable goods are down minus 0.5%. Jobless claims continue to go up 1.438 million this morning. Last week it was 1.37 or something. It's going up. Unemployment is going up. Diesel fuel average this morning is $5.30. It was $4.89 a couple of days ago because they've come out now and says we only have a 25-day supply of diesel fuel. And they're telling people in the Southeast you need a 72-hour window to order. If you need it Monday, you need to order it Thursday. This is crazy, folks. Now, core capital goods, they were expecting a plus 0.5%. They got a negative 0.7%. Inventories are down 0.7%. We've given you the manufacturing numbers are down. Manufacturing is shrinking. Let's talk about housing. We told you yesterday that mortgage applications are down 42% from a year ago. 42%. The 7+ interest mortgage rates is one of them, but high prices on homes, shortages on the market. Mortgage refinance applications are down 86% from last year. Home sales are down, what was it, 22%? The lowest it's been in 20 years. And you're telling me that the GDP went up? I mean, home builder sentiment, folks, is down to 38. In December, it was in the 60s. And anything below 50 is recessionary. And they're down to 38. What else have I got here? Okay. The European Central Bank this morning raised the rate 75 basis points. And our Federal Reserve is probably going to do the same thing next week. Might only be 50 basis points, but they're going to raise rates again, which is inflationary. They've waited too long to do this. But let's go back to the GDP. This is a magical mathematics that they use to come up with this number. 12 days before the midterm elections. And I can tell you right now, people aren't buying this plus 2.6%. Business owners aren't buying it. They can tell you that. Restaurant owners aren't buying it. I mean, those numbers are holding okay, but they're not growing. Their margins are down by what they're making because of inflation. They threw into the numbers this time. The federal government considered student loan forgiveness as economic growth. And they threw that into the mix. They threw into the mix government spending. Now, if you want the real number, folks, and also credit card debt is at its highest level it's ever been. People are living off their credit cards just to survive, just to eat and have gas and pay their bills. Some people are paying their bills with their credit cards. When their credit cards max out, what then? But if you take the student loan forgiveness, I mean, seriously, how do you call that economic growth? Taking the burden off one section of the population and adding it to the other. Card debt. But anyway, the other thing is government spending. Government spending was 2.2%. All right, so let's take that. 2.2 of the growth. So that only leaves 0.6% growth, real growth. Government spending is not real growth. It's just phony money going out there into the economy. And this is what the Federal Reserve and the Treasury is doing. So that leaves 4%. You take student debt out of it, student loan forgiveness, and guess what? You're down to zero. You're down to flat. But if you really look at it and take in all these other negative numbers that have been going on month after month after month, where's the growth? It's a false economy, folks. A false economy. That was, this was out a half an hour before the show started. All right, let's get back. We're going to focus between now and the election. We're going to focus on the election. You need to hear and understand, number one, the lies from the left and what the plans are for the Republicans when they take power. Positive things. But we're going to talk about politics today. We're going to talk about climate change. I mentioned this yesterday. We didn't get to it. Wait till you hear this soundbite from John Kerry. It will blow your mind. Now, but first, Mark Kelly is a senator from Arizona. I want to focus on Arizona for a minute because that's going to be another flip from D to R or blue to red. The Masters is going to beat Kelly. But let me put out a new ad yesterday, political ad. Listen to this.
Arizona, we have a problem. Our state is falling apart.
Arizona declaring a state of emergency over illegal border crossings.
The former astronaut Mark Kelly is still living in outer space.
Has he done a good job, do you think?
Hey, the fentanyl is out of control.
D.C. Democrat Mark Kelly has sacrificed the people of Arizona to Biden's open borders cruelty, endless illegal immigration, record drug overdoses.
The DEA is calling this the single deadliest drug threat.
Gruesome gang violence.
More and more undocumented immigrants who have ties to gangs.
Human trafficking pipelines.
This has become a cultural norm here.
And while Arizona suffers, Mark Kelly has stars in his eyes. He's raised millions of dollars from Hollywood celebrities who support open borders. In fact, he acts like California's third senator. Open borders hurt innocent people.
We've had 16 dead bodies, and I don't think this guy's going to make it.
But Joe Biden and Mark Kelly haven't cared. It doesn't have to be like this. End the cruelty. End the violence. It's time for Mark Kelly to come back down to planet Earth. Call him at 202-224-2235 and tell him exactly how Arizona feels about open borders.
Wow. See, in that state, open borders is the big issue, and then crime, and then inflation. New York, it's crime, inflation, the economy. When you look at all these polls, climate change is toward the bottom. It's not a big issue. All right, sticking with Arizona. Kari Lake is the GOP candidate for governor there. And Hobbs, what's Hobbs' first name? It's Katie Hobbs, is a Democrat. Katie Hobbs, will not debate Kari Lake. She has seen Kari Lake eat the lunches of the media and knows if I get on that stage with her, she's going to eat my lunch. Just like Zeldin and Oz did the other night with Fetterman and Hochul. So here's Kari Lake, Arizona's GOP governor candidate, won't allow NFL to set border policy. The NFL has blackmailed Arizona over powder keg issues before, but it won't happen again, says the Republican candidate for governor, Kari Lake, the former Fox 10 television news anchor. Woke NFL owners will not dictate border policy to her if she's elected next month, or actually in 12 days. Now, the NFL does that. They go into communities and want to take over. You pay for our stadium. We're not going to pay for it, but we're going to do all the write-offs. You put out all the bonds and build our stadium. Listen, if you lose an NFL franchise or an NBA franchise, your crime's going to go down. Now, I know I'm going to get hit for that, but studies have shown where those franchises go in, crime goes up. All right, Lake made that pronouncement during an interview with an Arizona television station. It was her response to a question about declaring an invasion at the southern border, even if the NFL threatened to withdraw the 2023 Super Bowl from the Grand Canyon State. Lake promised she won't tolerate any attempt by the NFL to get her to stand down on border protection. I don't answer to the NFL, she said. I answer to the people of Arizona, period. If the NFL wants to play chicken over the 2023 Super Bowl, I can promise you that I win that game. And throughout Lake's campaign for Arizona's top office, she has frequently stated the new governor must be a person who will stand up to Mexican drug cartels. She promises to do that. She asked this question: Do you want to tell me that a bunch of football teams owned by billionaires are okay with fentanyl pouring across our border at a record level, killing our young people? The number one killer right now is fentanyl between the ages of 18 to 45. It's killing a generation of people. If the NFL is okay with that, then they got to do some soul searching. I don't think the NFL is that stupid. I really don't. Well, folks, I do. They're owned by the globalists. These sports organizations are now owned by the globalists. All right, back to this. In 2024, then GOP Governor Jan Brewer buckled when the NFL threatened Arizona with the loss of hundreds of millions of dollars in Super Bowl revenue if she signed a religious freedom bill into law. She voted SB 1062, a bill passed by the legislature's conservative majority to protect people opposed to the LGBT mafia's attempt to crush religious liberty. The media took its marching orders from the alphabet crowd and badly represented the bill. Sports Illustrated reported the NFL was beginning to look at alternative sites for the 2015 Super Bowl. Governor Brewer went wobbly, caved in, and snubbed her nose at her Republican base over a lie. And that is why she lost the election in 2016 and put a Democrat in the governor's seat. That weakness will not be found in Governor Lake's administration. And she is the Donald Trump endorsed candidate. Katie Hobbs, the Democrat gubernatorial candidate, was supposed to debate Lake this week, but she has refused to participate in any debates at all, nor has she promised to stand up to the cartels and the NFL. Folks, this is how we win back America. We stand up to bullies. The NFL is trying to bully governors and legislators to do what they want you to do, which is all a bunch of woke. They do this everywhere. You stand up to bullies. And the NFL, if they want to pull out of Arizona, pull their franchise out, I say let them go. You have a lot more going for you in Arizona than an NFL franchise. Well, what if your baseball team says, well, if they go, we go? Bye. Well, what about these stadiums? Well, guess what? We're going to come after you, the NFL and Major League Baseball, and we're going to make you pay for them. We'll sue you. Watch out. You see how this game works, folks? This is what we're looking at here in America. Stand up and push back. Stand up to the bully and say, go ahead and hit me, and see what happens. Now, Carrie Lake is one of those people. She's like Governor DeSantis. She don't put up with anything. We need more like her. This is what we're looking at here, folks. Republicans, those that are running for office right now, especially those that were endorsed by Donald Trump, have a spine. And they're standing up and fighting, and that's influencing others, Republicans that are already in the House and the Senate. They're just starting to stand up now. Wait a minute, it's time to fight back. The heck with the media. They don't like us anyway. They're a bunch of liars. So we're going to stand up and fight for America, or doing the same thing. Now, I got to throw this in here, folks. I've got to play this soundbite. Well, I'm going to play two sound bites from Hillary Clinton. I know. Oh, I don't want to listen to her voice. I know. But she's came out with a video 2 days ago. I wanted to play this yesterday, and I didn't get it recorded till last night. Are you aware of the song by Travis Tritt, I'm Gonna Be Somebody Someday? Well, that's Hillary Clinton. She's trying to become somebody, and she keeps failing. You know, being the husband of a womanizing, cheating, scandalous husband who became president is not, that doesn't bode well on your resume, folks. Oh, but I was Secretary of State and I was Senator. Oh, really? What did you do when you were there? You hurt America. So this is what she's just now come out with. There's two quotes in here, two sound bites in one. One is today, this week. The other one, you'll know where it's from. All right, let's listen.
Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. This vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president. I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night.
Well, Hillary, we're going to keep you awake every night then. This vast right-wing conspiracy nuts that are out here fighting for the Constitution. Now, one was this week, and the other one was from 1992 when Bill was originally running for president. It always is. How many times has she come out and said, oh, they're going to steal the election? The right-wingers, they're going to steal the election. But we know who steals elections. Here's the other bite. You will remember this.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Oh, speaking of, I got to play this on her too. Where'd it go? I've got it. Here it is. All right. That's Hillary Clinton. She's still trying to be somebody. She still thinks she's going to run for president in 2024. Folks, bless her heart. Good luck to her. That's all I can say. All right, Joe Biden keeps screwing up. I don't know how else to say that. I really don't. He's done everything wrong when it comes to the oil and gas industry in the United States. Reserves are getting low. Port says there is only a 28-day supply of, it's now 25 days of fuel oil. He is literally getting into the face of Saudis, the Saudi Arabians, about them not doing what he begged or ordered them to do with the oil output, and to hold off the decision until after the midterm elections. And they shoved it in his face. The cost of gasoline, heating fuel, and natural gas have skyrocketed over 75% since he took office in a short time. Yesterday morning, a bunch of bankers and financiers met with Joe Biden. Jamie Dimon was leading the way on this. This is what they told Joe Biden. You're not going to see this on mainstream media because it's embarrassing to Joe Biden. They said, cool it with Saudi Arabia. They're one of our good partners. Other than Israel, they're our best partner in the Middle East. Cool it. Get out of their face. Make amends with them. Also, you need to open the pipelines, reinstate leases on federal lands, open the Alaskan drilling, and other items to get oil and gas flowing in the U.S. again and take pressure off of the economy. Now, this is corporate CEOs and financial CEOs telling the president, get off your high horse and do the right thing for America and the American people. Do you think it's going to happen? I don't know. You know, Jamie Dimon can't write an executive order. He doesn't have a pen and a phone like Obama does. But, folks, they can put pressure on them politically. They can say, no more money to Democrats. None whatsoever. Our corporation will not donate to Democrats anymore. Whoops. Ouch. That could hurt. So he's being told now, and when you go back, well, he's being told, straighten up your act. Do the right thing. Do you remember they were putting pressure on Jamie Dimon and other banks? Do not loan any more money to energy corporations and oil and gas corporations. Cut them off. Our federal government was trying to pressure banks into doing that because of this stupid ESG thing. Environmental, social, and diversity China control garbage. We've talked about that on this show. And the banks told them, what? Excuse me? You can't tell us what to do. And if we did that, you think America's economy is bad now, what do you see what happens if we did that? Golly. This is totalitarianism, Marxism, and tyranny, folks. But now they're pushing back and saying, Mr. Biden, you've gone way too far. You're killing us. By turning around and getting the pumps flowing again, you will turn the economy around. That's what started the economy going down, other than the lockdowns from the pandemic. But that's what really started the inflation going up and the economy going down. The CEOs know it. You and I know it, as we the people. Joe Biden knows it, but that's what they want to do. So Joe Biden's been put on notice by CEOs. Straighten up your act. Get America back to being energy independent and stop messing around with these totalitarian nations and wanting to buy their oil from Venezuela and Iran and other places. We have the oil here. We have the cleanest oil under our surface than anybody in the world. Venezuela has the dirtiest. And it takes a special refinery because it's so thick and dirty to refine it. And we have them, I think, 3 or 4 in the United States. When we had good relationships with them, that was okay. To John Kerry. Folks, this was 2 days ago. Today's the 27th. This was Tuesday. He was speaking at the Council of Foreign Relations in Europe somewhere. And I want you to listen to this soundbite carefully about what he is saying. Where are you? Right here.
So, yes, we're asking a lot of these institutions, but that's what they're there for. And we have to ask even more. Historically, from pandemics to famine, MDBs have risen to the moment in times like this. And that has to continue and expand in the context of more frequent and more severe climate-related disasters, which we will experience. We need the MDBs to scale up finance for adaptation and resilience. And we need them, including today in a place like Pakistan, to ensure that countries have ready and affordable access to resources after disaster. We need a greater synergy between public and private finance. It's been talked about for a long time. It's got to happen. Now, in Glasgow, we were encouraged that over 450 private sector financial firms responsible for $130 trillion in assets committed to net zero. A year later, we're seeing a few signs of a little, ripple of discontent therein, but we cannot slow this down. For every $1 invested in low-carbon energy supply, $1.10 is invested in fossil fuels. Go figure. The math and the science unequivocally make clear we just can't hit our targets unless we dramatically change that ratio. So we need private sector financial institutions to recognize the financial risks associated with a disorderly, chaotic, but inevitable transition to net zero if we don't manage it more effectively. We need those institutions to systematically recognize the financial risks that the impacts of climate change pose to their own assets. You want a disruptor in the marketplace? Continue down the road of not adequately responding. Now, I know that many of
Okay, I had to play that. That song is titled Dumb as a Rock. Now, if you listen carefully, what was John Kerry talking about in that soundbite? Give us your money. We got to have your money. Give us your money. We want your money. But he says, okay, $1.10 is being spent for fossil fuels and $1 for alternative green energy. Well, I don't know where he came up with those numbers. But let me tell you this, John Kerry, and everybody listening out there. Joe Biden came out last week, and, of course, he's blaming the oil and energy companies now for all the high prices and all this. He's blamed Putin and Mars and Venus and the moon and everybody else that's, low tides, high tides on high prices. He needs to look in the mirror and his policies. So he complained last week oh, they made $70 billion in the last quarter, and they need to stop paying dividends, and they need to invest in all this green energy. Well, folks, they don't know what they're talking about. They're dumb as a rock. The United States energy industry is the largest investor in alternative fuels. Let me repeat that. The United States energy industry is the largest investor in alternative fuels in the whole world. They understand there are other energies that can be used. So they don't tell us the truth. They lie. I don't even know if they even know that fact of the investment. That $70 billion goes back into their industry. It didn't go in their pocket and they go home or go down and buy a private island somewhere. It goes back into reinvestment. The government needs to let them build more refineries. Let's build some more nuclear power plants. You want clean energy, that's it. Now, let's go back to John Kerry. There were two more quotes out of this talk. They weren't on a soundbite. Here's the first quote I'm going to read. During the summer, past summer, June, July, August, the Arctic, which is the northern tip of the world, was 70 degrees above normal. The Antarctic, which is the southern tip, was 100 degrees above normal Fahrenheit. And while 3 continents experienced record heat for the first time, all on the same day. Now, what is wrong with that statement, Mr. Kerry? I guess he doesn't know how to follow science, true science. Summer in the northern hemisphere, it's winter in the southern hemisphere. So how are they having heat waves at the Antarctic when it's wintertime? Please explain that to me, John Kerry. Czar John Kerry. He does not have an official title. He's not Biden just says, hey, go do this for me. Wasn't sustained by the Senate or anybody. Anyway. So number one, 70 degrees above normal at the Arctic? Seriously? The Arctic and the Antarctic, their average temperatures on a daily basis is minus 35 to minus 70. Now, let's say at the Arctic, let's take minus 35. It went up 70 degrees. So you went from minus up to 0, that's 35 degrees. And another 32 degrees, that's 67 degrees. And then so 3 more degrees put it at plus 35 degrees. Now, how much melting do you think really took place? Probably not a lot. So let's take the Antarctic. Let's use the minus 35. We use the minus 70, 100 degrees, it only gets them up to 30 degrees, still below freezing. But let's take the minus 35. So we have the 67 degrees, and then we need another 23, right? Or 33 degrees. So that puts you up to 60-something degrees above 30-some degrees above freezing. You're in the 60s. Do you really think the Antarctic got up to in the 60s during wintertime? they think we're all dumb as a rock. They're the elites. They know it all. Whatever we say, you need to bow and accept. Again, it's all about money, and it's gimme, gimme, gimme. Now, here's the second quote. I am absolutely convinced we are going to get to a low-carbon, no-carbon economy. He didn't say atmosphere. He said economy. That's now a decision that even the marketplace has made. What I'm not convinced of, and nor should anybody be, is that we will meet the challenge of the scientists to get there in time to avoid the worst consequences of this crisis. Well, he in his soundbite saying, possibly this is going to happen, possibly that's going to happen. We need to make sure there's money to prepare for disasters. Yeah, we need to do that. Disasters are going to happen. But this guy's speaking with a forked tongue. The problem is they firmly believe everything they say. They firmly believe there's a climate crisis out there, and the only thing that's going to stop it is us getting all your money. Now, that makes about as much sense as calling a chicken a rooster. All right. Kudlow, 2 nights ago, he is the best news show on cable, satellite, streaming, whatever, even over the mainstream media. He's the best news show out there. Straight shooting, tells it like it is, great guest. They show the facts. And this was 2 nights ago. He's on at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox Business. You have to listen to him every day. I got on late yesterday. Well, I got the first part, and I had to go do something and came back. He had a great interview with former Vice President Mike Pence. And they're in Houston holding convention right now, talking about the American Forum and how to move forward and the plans of what the Republicans are going to do when they take over control after the elections and they get back the Senate and the House. And they're fantastic plans. And Larry asked him, how are you going to stop Biden? He's still in office. And Mr. Pence said this: the House controls the purse to the government. Republicans will cut off funding to all these extreme radical things that Biden has going on and the Marxists have going on, and they will cut off the funding. Now, Larry was talking about the Assistant Treasury Secretary Michael Faulkner. He was Assistant Treasury under Trump. And he says, is there one thing you could suggest to keep us out of a recession? Faulkner said, I quote, I think the most important thing we can do, Larry, is unleash American energy. At the end of the day, low-cost access to energy has broad impact across the economy, and so the most that we can do to help economic ingenuity here in the United States is to bring down energy prices and to end the war on American energy, unquote. And that's what it is, a war. The Democratic Marxists want to do away with oil and gas. Now, let me ask you, how many products in America are products from oil and gas? Can you name some? Well, I can. So let me ask you this. What does antiseptics, let's see, what's the fishing lures, pantyhose, where's the other, glasses, pillow filling, smartphones, and toothpaste have in common? What do all those products have in common? That's right. They're made from oil and gas products. There's a list of 150. I'm on the energy.gov website. That's right, .gov. This is from the Energy Department. And they list, specifically pull out 150. Everything on there that's on this 150 list, you use. Adhesives, antifreeze, curtains, credit cards, crayons, dice, kayaks, laptops, life jackets, lipstick, lubricants, luggage, mops, rubbing alcohol, plastics, propane, refrigerator linings, car dashes, auto dashes, soft contact lenses, solar panels, spacesuits, combs, computer keyboards, clothes, upholstery, unbreakable dishes, TV cabinets, tool racks, tires, tents, wind turbine blades. We cannot have wind turbines and their blades without the oil and gas industry. And it takes 80 gallons of motor oil to run the wind turbines to keep them lubricated. Now, we could put up all metal wind turbine blades. How effective do you think that's going to be? Have you ever seen a wind turbine blade up? They're 80 feet long, 80 to 120 feet long. So go ahead and make them out of straight metal. According to the energy.gov website, petrochemicals derived from oil and natural gas make the manufacturing of over 6,000 everyday products and high-tech devices possible. And crap Marxists want to shut the petrochemical industry down. Speak of the Dark Ages. Speak of pioneer times. This is who we're dealing with, folks. There's more from, let me scoot down here. Here was, John Kerry was in Egypt. This is Larry Kudlow. Quote, now Biden climate czar John Kerry, speaking in Egypt today, continued to pound fossil fuels, continued to argue the math and the science unequivocally make clear we just can't hit net zero unless we dramatically lower investments in fossil fuels. With all due respect to Mr. Kerry, I would suggest that his policies have brought the economy to net zero, indeed below zero. Of course, with record high inflation, and I would add that the math and science unequivocally make no such assertion. You can't just take 75% of our power without an alternative game plan. And we've brought that up over and over. Where's the end game? Where's the game plan? They don't have it. Now, climate expert Born Lomborg, using the United Nations climate model, suggests that $400 billion of more climate spending, $400 billion, might reduce the temperature by 28 thousandths of 1 degree Fahrenheit. Mr. Lomborg and others have repeatedly suggested that after spending $5 trillion globally in recent decades, the global climate needle has barely moved, and I will add for my part that many in this crowd of climate existentialists don't know the difference between changes in the temperature or today's weather or long-run climate trends over 50 to 100 years. 28 thousandths of 1 degree. Folks, you can go outside and it can be 90 degrees, and then in 10 minutes it's up to 92. And you will not have felt the difference. Now let me ask you this. I did a parody a while back where I in August we had 4 or 5 days of below normal temperatures. And I says, if this trend keeps up in 2 or 3, 4 months, we're going to have temperatures 30, 40 degrees lower than where we are now. Well, that was when it was in the upper 80s, mid and upper 80s. And I talked about frost. I said, on your roofs will be a mini glacier. And when it melts, it could flood the creeks and streams near your home. Again, it was a parody. This is how they throw things out of context so much. But remember the report a couple of weeks ago I gave you, the scientists out of Italy saying the same thing? There's been hardly any change whatsoever. Now, they've had heat and drought in the West in the United States this year. They're going to use that. Oh, look at that. They're going to use a wet period in the East. Oh, look at that. What they don't have now is a bunch of hurricanes. They only have one. And that's blowing their minds. And hurricane season ends on November 1st. This is how crazy they are. All right. I'm looking at the time, and we're just flying right along. I received this last night from Congressman Jeff Duncan. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got everything, pertinent information out of that from Larry Kudlow. This came out, Congressman Jeff Duncan from South Carolina. He's in the district right next to ours. Our congressman from my district, William Timmons, does zip. Zip. He's a waste. When I go vote in 12 days, I'm not going to vote for the Democrats a write-in. I'm not voting for him. I'm going to write in my name. I'm telling you that up front. I'm going to write in my name. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to write in my name. All right. Congressman Jeff Duncan, he's out there fighting and talking and meeting with people and doing stuff like what I'm going to read to you. This is what he put out. Quote, in response to an energy crisis that held the United States dependent on Middle Eastern OPEC cartel countries for its energy, President Jimmy Carter created the Department of Energy in 1997. From the law, Section 101, Congress of the United States finds that 1, the United States faces an increasing shortage of non-renewable energy sources. 2, this energy shortage and our increasing dependence on foreign energy supplies present a serious threat to the national security of the United States and to the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. 3, a strong national energy program is needed to meet the present and future energy needs of the nation consistent with overall national economic, environmental, and social goals. I might come back to that one. Number 3. Number 4, responsibility for energy policy, regulation, and research, development, and demonstration is fragmented in many departments and agencies and thus does not allow for the comprehensive, centralized focus necessary for effective coordination of energy supply and conservation programs. And number 5, formulation and implementation of a national energy program require the integration of major federal energy functions into a single department in the executive branch. Now, ask yourself, is the United States more dependent or less dependent on foreign sources of energy in October 2022 since the creation of the Department of Energy? The answer is today more dependent, and we are dependent on countries that don't have the United States' best interest at heart: Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia, Venezuela, etc. We are also dependent on China for batteries needed for electric vehicles and energy storage and solar panels, as well as all the minerals that make these things work. This dependency also applies to our allies. Just look to Germany, the EU, and Great Britain right now. In addition, the Department of Energy put a great emphasis on nuclear operating laboratories all over the U.S., but many would argue that China is leading the world in next generation of nuclear technology. Why are energy costs so high when just a few short years ago we had low transportation fuel costs and were net exporters of crude oil? The answer: Joe Biden. On his first day in office, the newly inaugurated president began instituting the policies that brought pain to Americans attempting to provide for their families and keep them warm and safe. Paused and then canceled leases of federal lands for oil and gas production, onshore and offshore. Stopped the Keystone XL pipeline, which would bring Canadian oil to refineries here in the U.S. set up to refine that type of crude oil. Used agency regulations to further cripple the oil and gas industry. Now, the world has seen President Biden fly 11,000 miles to Saudi Arabia to beg OPEC to increase their supply of fossil fuels to America, putting more money in the pockets of the Saudis instead of American energy companies and shareholders. It is still fossil fuels, you hypocrites. And President Biden has continued to release oil from America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR, to increase the supply, wait for it, oil, in an attempt to lower gasoline prices for American voters hurt so much by the rising prices of transportation fuels. The SPR was created to ensure America had a guaranteed inventory energy supplies in times of emergencies, not to be used just to lower prices for American consumers who were feeling the pain from bad politics. The SPR is now at its lowest level since 1984. President Obama released some in response to disruptions caused by the Libyan civil war. President Trump refilled the SPR when oil was cheap, and Joe Biden is draining it now. Joe Biden and his administration have increased dependency on foreign energy, been hypocritical about fossil fuels, just wanting to kill American fossil fuel industries as promised, and continue to put America's energy security in peril by draining a strategic asset for political purposes. Unquote. Thank you, Congressman Jeff Duncan. This is how you stand up to bullies, folks. This is how you stand up to Marxists. Remember, we still have the Second Amendment and all the rights that go with it. Don't forget that. Now, I'm probably going to have FBI come knocking at my door this afternoon for saying I support the Second Amendment. All right, I'm looking at the time here. We got time. We got some time. Let me ask you a question. How many of you can name the Democratic Marxists that sit on the January 6th committee? How many? How many Democrats can you name that sit on the January 6th committee? Think about it. It should be called the Liz Cheney January 6th committee. She is always front and center. Her and Adam Kinzinger, who both of these fought Trump, voted to impeach him. Kinzinger out of Illinois decided his numbers got so low for fighting against Trump. In Illinois, he was down to like 20%, decided there's no way he could run for re-election again. I mean, the Republicans disowned him. Same thing happened with Liz Cheney. In the primaries, she got hammered by a Trump-endorsed candidate. Hammered. I don't think she even got 35% of the vote. And she was begging Democrats to cross over and vote for her. Alrighty. The two GOP socialist House members have been the ones front and center on the committee. And it was done on purpose to protect the Democrat Marxists and make it look like it was the GOP going after Trump. Well, that didn't last long, did it? Now, everybody saw through this charade that's been taking place, this unconstitutional committee. It was not done any way or form by the book and regulations of the Constitution and the rules of the House. And Cheney and Kinzinger are there by an invitation from Pelosi. They were not assigned by McCarthy to be on that committee. Now, McCarthy should have done something about that. He should have pulled them into a room and said, "You're not going to sit on that committee. If you go, we're going to throw you out of the Republican Party, and we're going to slap your hand. What do they call it? Censor them. We'll do a vote and censor you and all this stuff, and we'll try to even throw you out of Congress before the election." But no, he didn't do that. He's not a leader. McConnell's not a leader. All right, so who sits on this committee from the Marxist side? Zoe Lofgren, California. Big household name, isn't it? Pete Aguilar, California. It's really not another household name. Stephanie Murphy, Florida. I wonder if she'll get reelected down in Florida. Jamie Raskin, Maryland. Elaine Luria, Virginia. Who knows these people, right? There's one more Democrat. And, of course, it's Adam Schiff out of California. Isn't it interesting when you see sound bites and video, you only see it of Cheney and Kinzinger. None of these, not even Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff has no credibility whatsoever in America right now. Neither does Cheney, and she wants to run for president in 2024. Well, have at it, Cheney. I mean, she says, I will do everything I can to keep Donald Trump from running for president and being president. Well, go ahead. You and your daddy, you might as well go hunting and shoot at each other with your shotguns. And they want Trump to go. They subpoenaed him within an hour after the sentencing of Steve Bannon last Friday. What a political ploy. Trump says, fine, I'll come talk to you. But it will be televised. It'll be on national television. Oh, no. We can't have you coming up here and making fools out of us, which he will do because he's got information. That's one of the theories that about the raid at Mar-a-Lago, that they wanted all the bad stuff that he had on the Democrats. That's a theory. Probably stored in a satellite somewhere up in space. All right. Where to next? I can save that sound bite. UK politics. United Kingdom politics. Last week, I announced the resignation of Prime Minister Liz Truss. And I mentioned that she had been politically assassinated by the globalists. And that's exactly what happened to her. She opened fracking in the UK to help curb the energy shortage being caused by the Russian oil shutdown to the EU, European Union. She wanted to lower taxes and other measures to energize a faltering economy. I also warned you that her replacement would be a globalist. His name is Rishi Sunak, Indian heritage. He has already ordered fracking to stop again. Stop it. You can't frack. No. No, we're not going to do that. It's going to cause earthquakes. He was one of those who tricked and forced Liz Truss to reverse course on tax reductions on the rich. And think about this, folks. The markets over in the United Kingdom and in Europe, they tanked. The UK currencies tanked after Liz Truss announced her conservative, free market economy moves to help the United Kingdom to move ahead and to get out of the hole. They tanked with good news, making right choices. Let's open fracking. Let's lower taxes. Let's stop some of these regulations. The markets tanked. Well, the central banks and the globalists controlled that happening to make her look bad. So after 44 days, she resigned after being politically assassinated. Now, Rishi Sunak is a green dreamer. He's a green dreamer. He's for the Green Deal. After meeting with King Charles III, who is a climate Green Deal eco-extremist, Sunak put all of the King's plans for Green Deals back into place. And one of them is a 2,500 house subdivision that's going to be all green. Good luck. You can do it, but don't you think you should be spending money in better places than, anyway. See, the king can't do that now. He has no control. But Sunak came in there, and King says, I'll support you being prime minister, but you have to do this and this and this and this and this. King Charles, Rishi, Prince William are all world control, globalization operatives and socialists. And now they have control of the United Kingdom again. And the markets, of course, turned around and all that stuff when Liz Truss resigned and all that stuff. That's where we are, folks. The globalist tentacles reach around the globe. You know what? I'm going to save that to Monday. We're getting short on time. That's going to take some time to do that. Did you know, folks, the Fed is losing billions, wiping out profits that funded spending? Profits and losses aren't usually thought of as a consideration for central banks, but rapidly mounting red ink at the Federal Reserve and many peers risk becoming more than just an accounting oddity. The bond market is enduring its worst sell-off in a generation triggered by high inflation and the aggressive interest rate hikes that central banks are implementing. Falling bond prices in return mean paper losses on the massive holdings that the Fed and others accumulated during their rescue efforts in recent years. Now, let me explain that. Bond rates are going up, but bond value is going down. Let me explain that. A bond costs $1,000. So they come out, and the interest rate, which is what they used to be, 1%. So $1,000, you put $1,000 in to get 1%. So the rate goes up 2%, up to 2%. That value has to go down to equal what you would pay to get 2%. So now they're up to 4%. So that bond value has to go down, that if you bought it at that price, you're going to get a 4% return. You see what I'm saying here? It's kind of a reverse thing. And as rates come down, the value comes back up. So if the rates come back down to 1%, the value of that bond is $1,000. These falling bond prices means paper losses. But also what's happening is that people are selling these bonds because they need money, and the Fed's having to buy them. Rate hikes also involve central banks paying out more interest on the reserves that commercial banks park with them. Whoops. So now they're raising the rates, and they're having to pay out more to the banks that they float overnight. That's tipped the Fed into operating losses, creating a hole that may ultimately require the Treasury Department to fill via debt sales. The United Kingdom Treasury is already preparing to make up a loss at the Bank of England. Britain's move highlights a dramatic shift in countries, including the U.S., where central banks are no longer significant contributors to government revenues. The U.S. Treasury will see a stunning swing, going from receiving about $100 billion last year from the Fed to a potential annual loss of $80 billion by year end. Folks, they've shot themselves in the foot. The Marxists have shot themselves in the foot by their policies across the board. And it's all coming back now to haunt them. Will you see this article in the mainstream media? No, you won't. Problem with central bank losses are not the losses per se. They can always be recapitalized, but the political backlash central banks are likely. But the political backlash central banks are likely to increasingly face. Now, I see central banks try to control everything. They're part of the globalist situation. None dare call it conspiracy. All right. The Federal Drug Administration is now running a climate bank with an original deposit of $27 billion. Now you say, Richard, what is this? This came out of the Inflation Reduction Act that 19 GOP voted for, that is going to raise inflation like crazy. Funded with $27 billion. Well, where did that funding come from? Oh, they printed the money. Well, what is this climate bank going to do? Well, there was nothing. It was like one sentence in the bill that created this thing. One or two sentences. That was it. No direction. No what it's going to do. But the FDA is now in charge of bank. Wow. It's probably, folks, just going to be a big slush fund. A big slush fund. This is what's facing us right now. One more last quick thing. Well, not that quick, but it will eat up the rest of the time. Now, I want you to sit down for this. This is going to be real shocking to you. Are you sitting down? Okay, if you're driving, get control of yourself. Both hands on the wheel. Iran and Venezuela strengthen dangerous military and economic alliance to challenge the United States. Imagine that. Two totalitarian, Marxist, tyrannical governments and countries are going to join forces militarily and economically to challenge the United States. Yeah, your brain's circling around up there, isn't it? The Biden administration has discussed Venezuela as a potential source of cheaper oil. They're in discussions. He's talking about doing away with all the sanctions that Trump put on them, and a move widely lambasted by Republicans. President Bush recently sought to resume Venezuelan oil imports in exchange for a promise of free and fair elections in 2024. That Venezuela would have free and fair elections. Yeah, they had one a few years ago, and Maduro, fine, he won, but I'm still here, and I have the military, and I'm not going anywhere. A move that critics argue would only strengthen the hand of Nicolas Maduro dictatorship. The move comes at a time closer relations between the two U.S. enemies. Now get that word, enemies. We want to deal with our enemies. Folks, that's treason under the Constitution. Iran and Venezuela, both petroleum-rich OPEC members with international pariah status, have recently found solidarity in coordinated geopolitical, economic, and military maneuvers against shared common enemy, the United States, which has subjected them to a regimen of economic sanctions for years. Now, folks, let me add this. Yeah, Trump put sanctions on them, Venezuela, Iran, and others. He had them under control, Trump did. He had Russia under control. He had Russia pretty much under control. But not now. These guys, Russia, China, Iran, and Venezuela, and Turkey, and others, are out there running around footloose and fancy-free because of the appeasement policies of this administration. Ties between the nations were close under Venezuela's socialist president Hugo Chavez, but strengthened further under Maduro, who has sought a lifeline from Iran's Islamist regime. While Venezuela enjoys what are believed to be the world's largest petroleum deposits, years of mismanagement, corruption, and maintenance issues have dramatically hampered its production and refining capabilities. When Maduro took over, the United States had refineries down there, tons of Americans working down there. He turned it into a socialistic Marxist country, and he started nationalizing businesses. First, he took over the oil refineries, ran Americans out of there, put his people in there. They didn't know what they were doing. They have like 1,000% inflation rate down there. People are starving in Venezuela and trying to get out. Former diplomat and current Venezuelan political dissident Isaias Medina views the alliance as a clear and present threat to the United States. Quote, in my opinion, the countries of the axis of evil are increasing their presence on Venezuelan territory to strengthen their state policy of pursuing de facto control of a government that is based on asymmetric warfare against the West. This is where the interests of Venezuela, Iran, China, Russia, Cuba align. Medina quit his position with the Venezuelan mission to the UN when he served as a senior position over Maduro's policy. Geopolitical analysts have noted that the Maduro regime is now pursuing a policy which offers economic and territorial control to rogue states in exchange for access to its vast resources, including petroleum, gold, and potentially even uranium. Thank you, Joe Biden. This is what Joe Biden has done in 18 months, 19 months. He and the globalists and the Democratic Marxists are trying to destroy America. So they're letting their enemies run wild, do whatever they want to do, and create danger to the United States. And in the same time, we're weakening our military. Go back and listen to my program, How We Arrived at a Constitutional Crisis and the Goals of the Communists and how they're being met. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, yeah. That'll scare you just a little bit. Or no, I don't want to use scare. It will wake you up to what has been happening the last 50 years. Yeah, I don't want to use the word scare. It'll wake you up to what these bullies, these Marxist bullies, are trying to do to America. That's right, these Marxist bullies. So we're out of time, folks. I was just told in my ear 90 seconds, and we're done. So let's go out with this song. It's called A Beautiful Lie. And folks, the lies from the Biden administration are not beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the Medlock Post Radio Show today. May God bless America.